1, 2, 3, 4.
You should have the Mr. Todd Medina, Todd Medina music.
What would that be?
You know, the Bob Medina, is it? Mr. Bob Medina. You know that song? Mr. Bob Medina. So every time I hear your name, I sing to myself, Mr. Todd Medina, Mr. Todd.
I've never heard that song. What is that
Haven't you?
song?
I'll have to send it to you.
Is it a Australian song?
No.
Mr. Bob Lalina.
Bob Dobalina or something. Yeah. It goes back to the 80s. I'm pretty sure. I'll have to send it to you. You'll know it.
I've heard Funky Cold Medina. That's the
no.
Which is an aphrodisiac. Go figure.
Isn't all music?
Man. How
are you doing?
I sleep 2 hours. Then since 2 o'clock, I sleep an hour to 2 hours. Then I'm up for an hour, and then I sleep for an hour to 2 hours. I just woke up like
5 minutes ago.
No, about 30 minutes ago. Whew, man. Yeah.
Wild dreams?
Huh? Yes.
Wild dreams?
Yes. Well, they're not wild. They're Mr. Dabalina, she says. Mr. Dabalina.
Yeah, Mr. Bob Dabalina. And in it goes, Mr. Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina.
I've never heard that. I see Michael Whitefeather change his name to Michael White Dog Mini Feathers. Very cool.
Oh.
So it's your show. We're happy
it's my show.
Yeah, we're happy to multi-stream it for you. So it's on all the platforms. But yeah, it's your deal. And I just wanted to tell you the reason I wanted to go on is because the last time you came on, there was a misunderstanding.
Oh, was there?
On my end, there was. It was on my end, and I was I wasn't an asshole. I was not towards you. I was just in an asshole kind of mood because I didn't understand what was happening. I was prepared for one thing, and then it went into another thing, and I was like, okay. And I caught myself. So whenever you put that note up, like, so I can interview you on some meme I did, and I'm like, yes, I owe you that. So, because I've had a lot of people ask me, and we just said no, not till maybe January, because it's just such a crazy, wild time right now. But I felt like I owed that to you, and and I wanted to support you. We wanted to support you.
Oh, thank you. But you didn't come across like that, so.
I hope not.
Your professionalism took hold of you at some point and said, slap out of it, Todd. So, welcome. Are we live now? Everybody?
Yes.
Here? Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah. You've got, you got about 40 to 50 people already. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Claiming Your Voice. Very honoured. Very honoured to have the Mr. Todd Medina with us. I think it's really important that that we talk to you because where everybody is at the moment, we're at a point in our history, in our evolution, really, where it's essential that we all stand up and claim our truth and speak it into being. And with the guests that you've done, is you haven't had your 3,000th yet. It's you have had it.
Yeah, I don't know the exact episode. I have a kind of a feeling, but
yeah, because you were leading up to it, but there wasn't any big fanfare. So I was
it was in it was toward the end of last month.
Oh.
Yeah, we also went. We haven't used YouTube, but for I want to say not very much. I mean, I did some music videos and just a few things. Like maybe I did, I don't know, 200 videos. I had never used it much until I think the beginning of last year. But we just went over about that same time. We went over 1 million views on YouTube.
Wow.
That same month, September, completion. So
Yeah.
that was kind of
Harvest.
cool.
So basically what I ask all my guests for the first question, and then we take it from there, is pretty much what came first, the chicken or the egg? In terms of your awakening, I've found that it comes in two ways. You either have the matrix awakening, where you are in an industry or in a job position or something that is not in alignment with your soul, where you want to be, with your vision for New Earth. So you snap out of it and you start in the matrix. Where am I? Who am I? Where am I supposed to be? This is not working for me. And then you go on the soul path journey from there. Others have had the soul awakening, where they can grasp this concept that they're one with the universe. And then they begin to look at it from that perspective at the matrix and see where they fit into that. So I've found generally that there's been two ways of awakening. So how has that been for you?
That's a good question. I would have never framed it up that way, but that's actually applicable, right? I guess mine was probably, I think really and truly, since day one, I always knew everything was one. Like I always knew that. I don't think I ever lost that ever. Because I started reading. I had a few experiences when I was a little kid, when I was a teenager, and then I got married early, like at 22. And my father-in-law, he was like a yogi, and I walked into his room, his office, and he had all these books. Like he had like 300 books, Masters of the Far East series, all the different Handbook to Higher Consciousness by Ken Keyes, and just everything you could imagine. So he gave me my first two books. I was 22, 23. And so from that point, I started reading voraciously, probably for the next 15 years. I mean, my library, I had 3 different libraries, and I would say I probably read 2,000 to 3,000 books. So I was always, and I spent a lot of time alone at night. So I was always there, but I was also in the matrix. I was on the corporate ladder, and then had my own businesses. And then I went into the corporate ladder. And by the world standards, I became very, very excellent at what I did. And but there was this. I went out from one marriage into another marriage, and so there was a lot of grind. I was very successful, extremely successful. I was
Do you think they were distractions looking back on it now? Like it was trying to keep you in there to keep you like small kind of thing?
I think what happened was I came out of the blocks in my early 20s, really seeking it. I was doing breathing exercises, chanting. Now, this was all just my own stuff. I didn't share it with anybody. And somewhere in the first marriage, 3 kids, moved up the ladder. And by the way, I had 2 Kundalini experiences, like at 25, 26, but I didn't really know what any of it meant.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I was really fixated on becoming a multimillionaire and doing all these great things. And so I think what happened was my soul made a choice to kind of dive deep and dumb down or be distracted.
Yeah.
And so one marriage ends, I get in the other marriage, and they both lasted about 10, 11 years. And the second one, my wife was by human definition, mentally afflicted, beautiful lady, but she had a lot of demons. There was gradually always stuff coming in, and being with someone like that, they have a window to the other side, and there was just a lot of stuff that happened that I didn't go unnoticed. But there was also a very wild buildup that was occurring through my 40s, which would end at 49. I went from making, six figures for a number of years, and then consulting, making six figures, not having any money left over. And what happened was it just steamrolled. There were things happening in our house, some psychotic episodes. I kind of, in retrospect, kind of stayed in there and just wouldn't let go, on the basis of, I would not leave my post. So anyway, I guess it kind of all culminated one night. Things were really bad. I had gone from six figures to welfare. I had a $2,000 truck. I had four kids in the house. My wife was obviously having serious problems, and I was having problems. But every night I would play the guitar, and I would just play. That was my way of I guess, meditating. And then my guitars were destroyed. So I started at 49 years old teaching myself how to dance in the courtyard of my townhouse, looking at my shadow on the fence. And so one night, it was May the 30th, 2011, and it was 1:11 in the morning because I was downstairs teaching myself how to dance to hip hop and electronic music. And my wife, who hadn't really spoken to me, it was the darkest 8 days we ever spent together. She sent me a note, and she said, "Are you coming up?" And that's why I knew it was 1:11, and that stuff didn't mean anything to me at that time.
Yeah.
But I knew something was building. It's something had been building for a long time. I mean, I was hanging on by my fingernails, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Hence the tower moment.
It was a tower moment. And so what happened was I see this big light because behind my fence was a cemetery. And the part behind my fence had just been bought by the cemetery. So it really hadn't been, built out. So there was all these trees, and I look up and I see this big light. It looked like a comet, and it was coming right at me through the trees. And I'm thinking, what the hell is that? And then it turned into the face of Yeshua. And it just, you could see it all. I mean, it was just as plain as day. And his teeth were just like brilliantly shining. And he didn't open his lips, but he said, "What's the problem? What's the problem?" And I said, "What are you talking about, man? I've got four kids in the house. My wife's not well."
What's wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Let me just turn this off. And so he said, "What's the problem? Why are you so worried?" And of course, I rebutted, and he was kind of grinning. And he said, "I don't know what you're worried about. I've been standing over your family for 2.5 years. Well, 2.5 years earlier, she had eaten, literally swallowed. I watch it happen in about 4 seconds, 50 Tylenol PMs. And that was a whole other story. So, she basically died and came back, died in my arms, came back. And then we proceeded till that time. So I said, he said, "What are you so worried about?" And I said, "Dude, what are you talking about?" And he said, "I've been watching over your family for 2.5 years. And in that moment, I felt like a plasma wave start at my head and just go right through my body. And I'd had a couple of out-of-body experiences, and the feeling was very much the same. It was like peace and love. And I was like, wow, I feel pretty good, And then I looked back at him, and he was laughing, not laughing like in a bad way, but laughing like a parent would laugh at a kid who's taking something too seriously. And I said, quote unquote, I said, "What's up with that?" And he said, "You're the one of the unshakable faith. Now we're going to find out. Your world's about to turn upside down. And just remember, you'll never be alone, and you'll never be forsaken." And with that, I just walked into the house and slept with my family for the last time. Because the next morning I woke up and there was this psychotic episode occurred, and cops came, which had been happening more frequently. They knew what was, they knew the situation, because most of the time would be the same ones coming. And so, this one guy walked in. He was a sergeant, and I was sitting on the couch. My son was behind me, 16 years old, and he says, "What are we going to do here?" And I said, "I don't know. I have done everything I can." And he said, "Well, you haven't done enough." And I jumped off the couch and I said, "F you."
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, you're going to jail." So 42 hours later, I came out. They were all gone. And I just want to clarify one thing, from a human standpoint and from a soul standpoint, I created this.
Yeah, of course.
I was just as responsible, if not totally responsible, for everything that occurred.
Yeah.
And so 6 weeks later, I left my house with 2 suitcases, a box of mementos, and a briefcase that had a computer in it. And I went homeless for 2 years. So that was kind of my wake up. I think of wake up experiences are those instantaneous moments, and I guess in a way it was, but it was really a drawn out thing to me that's still evolving. Yeah. So.
Do you think you got an activation from him? Because it sounds to me like it was like a cross consciousness, that feeling of that bliss and that peace is. So
yeah, I think so. I mean,
because you'd already had your Kundalini Awakening, hadn't you? You said you had 2 episodes.
Well, I'd had those 25 years earlier. So I didn't and then I actually had a third one about, I want to say 2 to 3 months before this happened. Okay. So that third one was one that I still didn't catch on to. But in retrospect, I realized it was the biggest one. The other ones were very similar, but that one was like literally blew my head off. I'm sure it was some type of activation. There had been 2 figures in my life since I was a little kid. One was Mother Mary and one was Jesus, Yeshua. And I hadn't really communicated with Yeshua for a long time, or Mother Mary. I had been for probably 2 years, maybe 3 years, been convening in my closet with 6 grandmothers, which were actually women that had been in my life, or grandmother to either me, great grandmother, or grandmother to my children. And I would appeal to them and appeal to my angels to try to rectify things in a moment by moment, day by day basis in my household and in my life, because things were so crazy. But I do think that was an activation. But over the next, I would say the next 8 months, I had a few, and I think the biggest one was. There was a couple of them. One was I was staying at a friend's house a few months later, and I went for a walk. And I think looking back now, they were trying to get through to me, but they couldn't. They couldn't. Like, even though I was having this knowing, I still was entrenched in the illusion. Even though I was homeless and I was trying to I was obviously developing a communication or communion. But what happened was I went for a walk. I had a big issue on my mind, and I went and I was renting a bed at a friend's house for the week. I went and lay down. I went and sat on the bed. There was a warm glass of tea on the bed that'd been there for about an hour, and it was about half full. And I put my hands together and I said, "Can I trust this path?" Because I was choosing to go back into that whole man your station, bring the family back together. I was considering doing that, even though I knew the nothing had been solved. And when I asked the question, the glass shattered everywhere. Glass and tea shattered all over me. And I distinctly heard something I'd been hearing for a few months, which was Archangel Michael. And then I think the other big one was about a month later, about a month and a half later, I found this place, this sanctuary, that it was actually a park being built in Houston, down the road from where I lived. or where I was homeless, and I would go there, and it just pulled me there, and I'd have different encounters, but this was probably the biggest one. So it was about 2:30 or 3 in the morning. I'd been dancing in the club all night. Something called me over there. It was really windy, and I got out of the car at 2:30 in the morning. I start walking across this soccer field to go to the park that they're building, where they had like a big pond and a bridge they were building. And as I was walking across the park, I saw this pretty big white circle, like about 15 to 20 feet in diameter. And I'm walking through it, and as I enter it, the wind totally stops. Like, this wind was pretty enough to blow your hair back, right? So I kept walking through the circle, and when I put one foot on the other side of this outside the circle and stuck my head out, the wind was back. So then I took
Wow.
I took a step back into the circle, and it was gone. So at that point I thought, oh, and at that point I also heard all this ringing noise. So I went to the center of the circle, and I knelt down, and I didn't do anything. I just knelt there. I didn't hear anything except for this loud ringing. And I see that as being a big download. I'm sure there was a craft involved. And then I went from there to the pond, and a bunch of other things happened, which I guess you could say was a dimensional experience in the physical. Just without getting into all of it, but yeah, I'm sure there was quite a few distinct downloads that occurred there that I didn't know were.
Sounds like a portal.
I think it must have been something, because it all happened very quickly, from the glass breaking to meeting. I met this boy who was 14 years old, who had transitioned, who was the son of a woman I'd went to school with for 6 years, but I never said a word to her. She never said a word to me. And her best friend was my best friend. So it was a really weird thing. And then we ended up hooking up, out of the blue, which was all planned. But her son was at the sanctuary that night, and he actually materialized, and he showed me some things. And so I would think, yeah, it was definitely, maybe I stepped into a portal, and then everything that happened after that was within the portal. I'm not really clear, but it was pretty
well,
cool.
just a portal to even just for you to receive your activations that came through.
Yeah, because it really, well, even though these things were happening, really they began happening on a daily basis. Different things, crazy things, and it gave me the resolve to do what I was doing, which at the time,
they kind of, you're a hard man. Hello, come on, like.
Yeah, that was that was one of the messages I would get even more loudly later, like after I met Morgan, and we started working together, and she'd be like, they're saying you're like kind of slow, and but I've always been slow to figure something out, because once I figure it out, then I got it. And I moved really fast. But so that went on for about I want to say about, let's see, 7, 8, 9, about 10 months. And then March 10th, 2012, I got the name Soulogy from Archangel Michael, the other side of truth. And like, here you go, take it away now. And that's Morgan's birthday, by the way, which I wouldn't meet her for 4.5 years. But from that point, then it became, it gave me the resolve to not only overcome being homeless and destitute and in the legal system and all these different things, but also the resolve with Soulogy, because that's what I did every day. I would just start writing stuff on my flip phone and sending it up to this new group called Soulogy with 200 people in it,
So it just started sort of organically, and you didn't have any like firm vision of what you wanted. You just knew this was the name, this was the platform, and you're going to start sharing and allowing people to share their stories. They're basically all sharing their truth and claiming their voice, aren't they? So how's that empowered you over the years that you've been doing this? Have you, obviously it would have to change you. You're being empowered twice a day, really, by, really special, powerful beings. So
yeah. Well, it's been interesting because I didn't really realize it. I just knew I wrote every day, and I wrote about everything I was experiencing. And the first I'd say of the first 400 people that were there from, like, say, March 2012 to, say, the summer of 2012. So say like 3, 4, 5 months. I would say probably if there was 400 people, 300 I went to high school with, which I hadn't seen these people in 30 years because I left and I never went back. But you get on Facebook, you meet your old friends, and that's okay. So as I was writing this stuff, it became kind of a debate. I was from what they call the Bible Belt in America, and they were like, and I was having these discussions with Christians about, the specificity or exclusiveness of their philosophy or religion versus the all-inclusive of Soulogy. And so it was really interesting, and all of them but about 4 left. And so, it went from like 400 people to 200 people. But
soul family.
yeah. But, it's interesting, too, to your question, because when I put it together and I put together the description, I don't think I've ever really changed it. And it basically said that Soulogy is not an organization. It's an energy. It's all inclusive. And it goes on to say just a few different things, but nothing ever really changed from that. And most of the writings were, and it was never censored or restricted, as long as it wasn't like spam or a bot or something like that. As long as it had some level of oneness, whether it was a poetry, a poem, or whatever it would be. And so that's always stayed with it. But as far as the impact goes, it's absolutely extraordinary because I've, over the years, of course, there was kind of like phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1 was up until I met Morgan. And even though her impact and our connection was never really disclosed for about 2 years from the time we met in 2015, the impact was there, and even was there before I met her in the physical. So people would come out and they would just start telling their own story, telling their own truth. There were no restrictions, so it was kind of like just a whole bunch of stuff. We went through a lot of different phases, and then it really didn't dawn on me till August. Morgan came and said, "Hey, let's do a series on the hero's journey." And I said, "Okay, that sounds great." So she set up a bunch of people. She put up a post. All these people came on in August into September. And about 6 weeks into it, I realized, I thought, you know what? Soulogy has always been about transformation and about the hero's journey. And so the impact is, watching groups be formed from, their relationships in Soulogy or inspiration from Soulogy, watching people get the camera out and start doing their own videos or starting their own pages, or just, watching people liberate themselves and step into their power. It's been intoxicating at times. It is nice. Now it's really nice because I spend a lot of time doing this throughout the day. It takes a lot of work, the little things, putting up, quite a few posts every day. I'm talking like, 30 to 50 posts a day. And then of course the other work that came in, but you would say to yourself, man, is this even like, what am I doing here? Just like everybody else, you go, like, is it worth it? And all that stuff. Now I can see, like so many of us, I can see we're reaping what we've sown all these years. Yeah. So it's cool.
Yeah. So you've allowed you've provided a platform for people to, like, basically come out and say, their truth. So then that would then go and impact on their confidence level, I guess, because, it's hard to like have a platform, but if it's somebody else's, it's kind of like, okay, you just have to go on for 5 minutes, do your thing, and then it's done. But then you're like, I really liked that. I feel good.
Yeah.
That sharing, the coming together and the mind speak that happens, the energy that happens. And yeah, so I think, because I've seen a lot of difference in people that you've interviewed, years ago, and that I've seen their progression. And I think it's really like one of the most important things that you can do is standing in your truth, but actually speaking it out. And that's why I've called this series Claiming Your Voice, because it's okay to know who you are, have positive self-speak and all the rest of it. But unless you come out and stand in front of others and say what it is, who you are, what you're about, what your perspective is, and show your heart, basically, isn't it? Really, we're all just, here I am. anyone see any of themselves in me? True. Where's the commonality? Where's the truth? And then, of course, you examine the differences in people's experiences, because a lot draws you together, but then you're like, wow, well, that's what makes them unique. That's what gives them their individual perspective. So you talked about how you were doing your music, but you also, like with your rapping and things, that's opened you up to a whole new, different kettle of fish with the guests that you have. They're not just, light workers or healers or practicing massage or something, but a lot of people speaking their truth through their music, or any other creative medium, whatever it is. And you don't necessarily have to know everything about everything or any label, but just the general, which is why this, like, I've got some guests that really aren't spiritual, but they're still speaking their truth.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. It's funny because, and this is a true story. I mean, so 2012, on the streets, I got the name Soulogy. I would come off the streets in the summer of 2013. So it'd be about 2 years from when I went on the streets. And then about 7 or 8 months, well, it would have been 8 or 9 months later, again on March the 10th, which is Morgan's birthday, I was now living in a townhouse with my 2 youngest kids. And I was given the name Soulogy One Studios. And I said, well, what's that? And they said, you'll figure it out. Go downstairs and make a studio. So at that point, I had not made any videos, but I was about to. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so that's kind of what happened there. Soulogy One Studios was kind of the artistic or inspirational arm of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so that went on it took me about 3 or 4 months to put out 3 videos. It's really
that's
kind of
good.
Yeah,
That's
it me. Yeah. And then one weekend I sit on the couch, and this would have been 5 days before I met Morgan. So this would have been like late August 2015. And I sit on the couch for the weekend. I literally sat on the couch for 3 days and just sat there thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And I was scared. And finally, I turned on the doors, break on through to the other side, and I just flipped on the phone and I just started going. And then you couldn't stop me. Then I did like 409 months. And but anyway, so I met her like 5 days later. I'm just starting to do these videos. They're pretty entertaining if you go back and watch them now. But and so we would start talking every day. And I didn't know anything about ascension. I didn't know anything about galactic. I just knew my thing. And I knew
and you
her.
have visions of Jesus.
And I had this stuff going on. My stuff was very organic: trees, animals, spirit guides. I mean, I just didn't, I hadn't met an ET until I met her. And so we go talking about, we were probably like 6-7 weeks, and we're talking every day, and we're talking about all this stuff, and we're both like, wow, I can't believe we can actually talk to each other about this. This is amazing. So she's sharing stuff, I'm sharing stuff, and she finally says to me, you know, you ought to start talking to people because it's not all about you. And I said, wow, okay. That because before that happened, one of us or both of us said, you know, it'd be great to record our conversations and put them out there because no one's talking about this.
Yeah.
Everyone's
Yeah.
talking at you, but no
Yeah.
one's talking about it, right? So then she made that comment, and she also told me that about 2008, which would have been, you know, a few years earlier, she had actually put out an appeal to the universe and said, hey, I wish I can create a platform where people can tell their stories and share their skills, gifts, and abilities. So I still wasn't putting things together like I can now, like we all can now.
Yeah.
And she obviously had some insight and foresight. So when she said that to me, I slowly started to ask people if I'd seen friends of mine, hey, do you want to jump on Facebook Live with me? And we jump on Facebook Live, and then it just started going, and then it grew and grew and grew until about 2018. I'd done about 400, 300, and she came down, and we had that divine union ceremony, and she says, we're going to do this. Let's do it. So next thing I know, we're doing like 80 to 100 a month. And this went on for months and months. And then it kind of dipped down to about 60 to 70 now. But yeah, so that's kind of how it happened. But I think the high point there is the convergence in the physical, the masculine, the feminine, and how the dreamer comes in, which to me is that feminine energy, and then the dream maker goes to work, right? So that's really been, if you ask people about Soulogy, they look at Soul Speaks 5D, which she came up with that, you know, way back in 2017, right? So it's that's kind of a short version evolution, but through that first question that you asked, what's it like to see the unfoldment, the expansion of people? It's amazing. It's amazing to even like just myself, because obviously people have watched me change, but even like from my own eyes to work with someone like Franco, I've seen him change. I've seen people that I might run into on the show every 4 months change. I mean, it's just amazing to be able to have like the best seat in the, you know what I mean? It's like the best seat in the ascension to be able to sit here and actually observe and be part of it.
You've talked about your spirit walks. You've been doing them for a while. I think you probably were doing more spirit walks at the very beginning when I started watching you than actual shows. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just was catching you as a single entity, Todd Medina, on Facebook rather than on Soulogy, and you'd go for these spirit walks. And I remember you were in Hawaii at one stage, and you were doing a lot there. And yeah, so this
Your sound went out. I think something disconnected. Your sound went out. Your sound. I think it just, there you go. It came back. Yeah.
This I don't know what you.
Well, I heard you say it started with the spirit walks, which is true. There was probably, I would say, probably about 1,500 spirit walks.
Yeah, and it was just really cathartic process every day, and you could literally see your transformation happening daily. You'd have your setbacks, and then we'd know. You'll come right. Because there was a lot of, it's, you know, the process, the healing journey, it's full of, you know, the ups and the downs, and we call the ups the happy, blissful moments, and the downs the crying moments. But really, it's all the same. It's all just, you know, the unfolding of everything that you're not, until what you're left with is just the real, raw, authentic being of you. So What prompted you to do that, like to share, to be so personal? Because you've got this platform that's professional on Soulogy, and you could have stood back and just left that, but you kind of went further, you know.
Well, the way the videos went was the spirit walks. So when I broke through in August of 2015, like I said, about 5 days before, I did probably 2-3 videos before I met Morgan. They were videos where I would turn on the music and then I would read my poetry, which was all about this stuff, right? My downloads, my channels, I guess. And then that would be in combination with the spirit walks. And the spirit walks and the studio things were probably about 1,500 of those before I ever did, seriously did any Soul Speaks 5Ds. So the idea was with the spirit walk was, I spent 2 years walking homeless. And when I mean walking, I would purposely walk all day long every day because that was the only way I could survive. I literally, if I stopped moving, I thought I would die because I had a bunch of traumas like a lot of us have gone through to be part of our wake-up call. And so anyway, when I started it, I had just been given a phone. I'd never had a phone that had a camera or what you call a smartphone. And I went down to the local store because it had a charging port that was brand new. And I paid the guy $40 to bootleg it, and I turned it on. And the idea was to replicate, because see, I still went on the spirit walks. Even though I'd come off the street every day, every night, I would go for long, long walks. I'm talking like 2, 3, 4 miles, right? Because in the homeless times, I would walk anywhere from probably 5 to 20 miles a day, right? And I would just be in this constant communion. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't have a Facebook thing where I messaged people. I just had the flip phone, and so I just would start walking at the cemetery next to my house, where there's a bayou. Where I would go every night to kind of commune, and I just would start basically bringing people into my spirit walk. So I would have my conversation that I was having, but I would have it with somebody witnessing it. And I didn't realize the traction that it was getting until years later when, people would say, I watched you back then, when you were like crazy and. But to your point, it came to my attention that because I guess I understand my soul has a knack for getting information or code, producing it and putting it out in a way that's more universally accepted, I guess. Is, if you notice, like on the show a lot, somebody will be very specific in the way they speak and what they're speaking about. And sometimes it's like, not always the easiest thing to understand. And then I might say to them, okay, so what you're saying is this, and I'll put it like in plain words. So that's kind of like a pattern, I guess, or part of the imprint of my soul. And so what I found was, and I didn't really realize it or think about it too much until I met Morgan, and we started to interact, and she started introducing me to shadow eating. And I was like, I don't have any shadows, but I didn't know that I did. I had a lot of shadows, and I knew a lot about the I am soul, but I didn't know a lot about the I am human. And so as I was going down that path, and then in retrospect, I looked back not only at myself, but I looked at other people who were making videos. And I thought, why do these connect with people? Because I would look at a video like say something I might have done 5 years ago. You got a wild guy, no shirt on, a do-rag, and he's got rock music in the background, and he's just freestyling whatever. Well, what I realized was that it's the heart. It's just it's the intention of the heart. It's the people are attracted to the heart. You can have egoic presence in the transmission, as we probably all do with anything we do, and that's going away. But if the intention of the heart is that Trinity energy to serve And again, I realize that there might be some shadow, there might be some ego, but there's just something about putting it out there. And I've watched so many different people do it now, even to the point, like a couple of days ago, Ryan McIndoe came on. He'd never been on a live. It wasn't a typical Soul Speaks 5D. I asked him 2 or 3 questions. He didn't answer any of them. And I said about 20 words the whole time, but it was an extraordinary example of what I'm trying to talk about and how things come in so many different flavors. The response was tremendous. People were crying. There was code coming through. I can't even tell you 10 of the words he said. But something was coming through in his spoken word and his light language and his presence, his heart. And that's become, I think, even more magnified now. People, it's a truth frequency, love frequency, whatever you want to call it. But I think that's always been true. And I think that back to like what Soulogy platform is, I think that's what it is. I think it's a place where you can come out and you can be yourself. You're supported as long as you can get past the point of the self-consciousness and the embarrassment, which even you can bring with you, which even makes it richer.
It's more endearing, I think, when you're vulnerable and more authentic and real. And that, I was going to ask you, what advice would you have for anybody who's sort of, like Ryan, like has something very beautiful to portray and to give, but yet hasn't found that
I got you.
The ability. They're just struggling with the ability, because everybody has it, the ability, but there's this challenge, this blockage, that it's fear. A lot of it is fear. I like, personally for me, when I get daunted with things such like this, like, oh shit, people are going to be looking at me. I like to think of it as that rather than you're on a stage, addressing an audience and envisaging everybody naked, I like to think that that I'm the only one that exists. This is just how I get through it. I'm the only one that exists. I created you. I created everything else. And I'm in a video game. I like to think of everybody just as characters. And so that takes the attachment away of anything that can hinder that, what you need to say, from coming through. So what would be your advice?
Well, that's a good question. So Morgan and I have noticed a lot of things with the show. One of the things that will happen is somebody will take the leap. They'll come on, and typically when somebody comes on, especially if no one's ever seen them, they'll get inundated with messages and friend requests, and they'll get a lot of energy come back at them. And it's really challenging. It's like a big download. So it's challenging to the ego, and they can kind of go into an ego excitement, which I think we can all relate to. And it doesn't last forever. Well, some of the characteristics might be, hey, when can I come back on again? And, and things like that. So I think, probably the best way to answer that is through Ryan McIndoe as well. So he sends me a message yesterday, and it was a beautiful message. And he said, "Hey, brother, thank you again." Da, 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 da. He said, "Listen, I'm sorry I didn't answer the questions." He must have gone back and watched it. He said, "I'm sorry I didn't answer the questions. I've never done this." And so he's making all these, not excuses, but like, he was being honest. He was being honest about, and he was also being very open to anything I might be able to help him with. So I said, "Oh, well, there it is." I said, "Listen, you did fine. Number one. Number two, you were perfect. Your intentions were pure. Your heart came out, and it's not what you said. It's what your frequency and your vibration said." And I said, "Just let it wash over you. Let it integrate, and then, take a breath, and then you come back for more," kind of thing. And that would be my advice. My advice number one would be, if you're getting the inkling to do it, you might as well not waste any time, because we all know how the soul works now. It nudges you once, then it taps you on the shoulder, then it's going to hit you in the head if you don't get out there and do it. So,
and then glasses explode in your face.
yeah, glasses explode in your face, or you go to jail for 34 days and things like that.
Yeah, just little things.
But I'd say the first thing is, if you get the inkling to do it, just flip on your phone and do it. And I've helped a lot of people over the years start their own initiatives, and I've seen a lot of people go like this. They go up, then they go down. So I always tell people, look, because they'll be like, oh, I got to get, what microphone do you use? And I'm like, I use this one. I use the one I got at the dollar store. So don't worry about all the spit and polish.
Yeah.
Flip on the camera and just start talking. Even if you're talking about how you make Mexican food, whatever it is, just get on it. Be consistent. Because I see a lot of people try to go at breakneck speed and then they dive. So I would say that. And then I would say, as far as the energy that comes back at you, don't have any expectations. If you get, in other words, try to be in that place where if you don't get much or you get a whole bunch, but don't measure yourself off the linear 3D paradigm measuring sticks, because it's about the individual's intent being infused into the grid, into our collective consciousness, and the universe doesn't miss anything. So it doesn't matter, like if we have you have 1 million views, or you have, like I would put up any of the last 10 shows that we've done in the past week. I would put up that against the David Icke show, where we had 1 million minutes viewed in a day. Okay. I would put that up against that interview any day of the week. Ryan's interview and David Icke's interview, which that first David Icke interview was like none I never seen him do. They were both very unique. They were both very heart-based and honest. So that's really, because you never know who you're going to touch.
Yeah.
And the way the soul works, if I reach one person or you reach one person in some form of inspiration, they're going to turn around and it's going to begin an exponential growth. So I would say that, just do it. Just get out.
Managing expectations is huge, because you kind of, you want to feel like you're doing something that's meaningful. And in that same breath, you're wondering, is anything that I have to say meaningful? You look at everybody else in the world and you compare. What's so-and-so doing? Oh, I can't do light language, so therefore I'm not as advanced. I mean, the bullshit narrative that we have running around our heads at the moment, in terms of how can we best represent, really, how can we stand up? A lot of people are doing it different ways. Personally, for me, I'm doing my own thing. I'm not protesting. I'm not. We have minor protests and things here, but that's not what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm honouring everybody who's doing just their thing, with the premise that, I mightn't have a lot to give, or I've got everything to give, but this is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to place my avatar in this process, because we all want to get to the point where we're all speaking our true mind, our true hearts. And only when we can all come together and be respectful and honouring each's truth, even if it grates against you or goes dead against you, that's how we're going to come together within the 5D quantum structure. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to say to anybody, or anything promotion-wise that you've got coming up?
No, we don't really do promotions.
Well,
no. What's that?
Anything?
No, I just I think we're all doing a great job. I really do. I really feel like that since about a week ago, the 10th, 11th, and 12th. I know a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm going to be hitting the couch as soon as I get off this show. I just think that what you're saying is the absolute truth, because the more people that speak their truth, and of course, speaking the truth is a metaphor. You know, expanding the throat chakra. You can speak your truth by your art, you know, your visual art, you know, rapping. You can do it in so many different ways. But the more people that do it, the more points of context we have in the creative field of consciousness. And also what that does too is it allows us to find that 0 point field, because we go through the judgments and we go through the prejudices and the biases and the epiphanies and revelations of ourselves until, you know, like I wrote the other day, you know, when we get to the point where everybody can put up a post and nobody has a comment, right? Nobody has to make anyone wrong. Like if you want to express something as a result of what's been presented to you, then go put your own post up or go make your own video. But I think this everybody stepping up actually gets us to that point, because sooner or later, those are the words that will run out. The truth frequency and the truth expressions will continue. But I would just say that, and then I just wish you the very best on your show, and I'm so happy to see you and other people doing this. And just don't stop, be consistent, and I got to tell you too, it'll get easier and easier and easier. It really will. And I don't know, it took me probably about 22 videos, and I just stopped watching them. I once I put it out,
I don't watch.
I can't watch them. I can't. Even when Morgan says, "Hey, let's watch this," I'm like, I can't watch that. You know, I can't watch it. Well, don't look at yourself, but you know, you just can't. You know, so yeah, that serious. In all seriousness, just, you know, be consistent, be yourself, and show up when you want to show up. It's that's just it. So, but thank you so much, Nikool.
Thank you.
Can't wait to get to Australia one day and see all my friends over there.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You take care.
Thank you, everyone, for watching.